Dave Reef along with Bob Fry, John Kernan at the far end now as we take a look at some of our other sportsman finals. We begin competition eliminator. That is John Edwards taking on toughest this category has, David Rampy.
Talk about both ends of the spectrum. John Edwards in his first final round, and all you got to do to pick up your first championship is beat David Rampy. 61 wins in competition eliminator alone, by far the most in history. The number 2 driver, David Nickens, who's here this weekend, 29 wins. Let's see if John can go green and make a run out of it.
No. Almost as if we knew what the script was going to show us. It's going to be David Rampy once again.
Barry Davis back on the starting line. David Rampy's longtime friend and crew chief on the starting line, and Terry Coley and a bunch of the guys back there at the starting line. And David Rampy is just awfully tough to beat. Your reputation precedes you a lot. That's why I was saying when John gets into his first final round, looks over and sees the baddest dude on the block in the other lane, sometimes you try to take a shot and give it a extra little, hit on the starting line. But once that red light's on, everything else down the racetrack's academic.
You talk eliminator time. You're looking in the window of Slade Cummins taking on Marlene Nelson.
Marlene Nelson is Jason Line's aunt. Out here this weekend running. Of course, the Jason Line team with Greg Anderson, the Ken Black team, they returned here in Pro Stock, a big story in the Full Throttle Series in her first ever national event final round against Slade Cummins, who is still in contention for the Lucas Oil World Championship. Not claiming this race for points. He'll stay here at Vegas next week. Try to add to that total. Marlene out and running. There's a big head start. Let's see if another member of the Line family can hold on and get the win. But Slade Cummins, who's got a couple of wins this year. We've seen him here on ESPN at Bristol and Houston. Top end of the racetrack, and he gets the win. The 10.72. Nice effort there from Marlene here this weekend. But Slade Cummins now has got to think about the divisional race next week. There's a guy we could be crowning the Lucas Oil champion in just a couple of weeks.
Slade Cummins coming out from Louisiana, 32-year-old. How cool would it be to be a world champion?
He came last week to Noble, Oklahoma, went to the finals in 2 classes at the Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series there. He's picked up a bundle of points in the last few weeks. You'll see him make the big top-end charge. He's got the quicker of the 2 cars, a little bump at the brakes there at the end of the racetrack, and then he winds up getting the win. So the Slade Cummins team, the Mosier Engineering gang, going to get the win. And Marlene Nelson, hey, came all the way out here. Great emotional weekend for Ken Black, for nephew Jason Line is in the finals, and Pro Stock. So all in all, not a bad weekend, but not as good as their weekend.
And there's the reaction down at the far end. The trophy is yours, maybe the big gold one at the end of the year. To find out after the divisional, of course, we'll update that story when we get to our Lucas Oil event in Pomona in 2 weeks. All right, here we go with Dan Fletcher. Who's he taking on?
It's an all-star show. He's got Tony Mandela. We saw Tony win at Sonoma earlier. He beat the former baseball player Eric Bell in the last round. Dan Fletcher took out Gary Emmons in that last round in a very good matchup. Yep. So the K&N Fielders got 36 wins in Superstock. That's the most ever. We saw David Rampy with the most wins ever in comp win here today. It's like an all-star show. We mentioned that earlier. Just absolutely loaded with talent here this weekend. But young Mr. Mandela's got his sights set on a championship. Off the starting line they go. It's pretty much dead even. Let's see if that K&N Fielders car can run the kid down. California in the left lane, New York in the right, and at the stripe, it's going to be Tony Mandela gets the win. How about that? The Division 7 guys protecting the turf. Big win there for the kid, and again, he's another guy we may see on the Lucas Oil stage at the end of this season.
What kind of a confidence builder is that for Tony, beating a guy like Dan Fletcher?
Tony Mandela's had a very good season, the best of his young career. He hasn't done a lot of driving racing, but comes back to beat Dan Fletcher in the finals is as good as it gets. That's like beating John Force, beating David Rampy, beating Tony Schumacher. Watch this, right at the end of the racetrack. The margin of victory is 1/1000th of a second.
Wow, it does not get, well, much closer than that.
No.
There's a good look at that race car coming to a stop at the far end of the racetrack, and you can hear the screams from inside the cockpit. Well, Bob, we are to our final round here at the Strip at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Oh, who doesn't love See's Candies?
Part of that Berkshire Hathaway enterprise. I own one of those A stock shares.
Warren Buffett,
yeah, right.
Omaha, Nebraska. Proud of it.
That is Stephanie Warren Skaggs in her first national event final round. We had 2 women in the final rounds for the first time here. She's got Steve Williams in the K&N Fielders Guide, part of that K&N Horsepower Challenge. The Pro Stock thing that let's watch is that Pontiac Grand Am closing on the K&N Chevrolet Corvette, and at the stripe is going to be Steve Williams. He goes 10.11 to get the win. Stephanie with a good effort, 10.07, but Steve a little bit better out of the starting gate. That can be the big difference here in these super classes or categories. So Steve Williams, K&N Fielders, gets his third national event win. First since Arizona back in 08. Stephanie with her best national event performance ever. Plus the fact she fed the announcers, bought us candy. Well, I mean, bought me candy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not really sure. I never saw any Seas candy this weekend. Good news is I live right there in Omaha, Nebraska, so I can pick me some up. Let's take a look at the photo finish cam down at the far end of the racetrack, see how close this one was.
Oh, that's a terrible drawing. He's looking over at her on the right side of the racetrack because you want to see where the finish line is. Don't want to let the other driver go by you. He did, and he gets the win. Margin of victory, my favorite number, 007.
And with that, the finals in Las Vegas are done. But remember back a couple weeks ago at the national event in Reading, Pennsylvania? Well, it was dark there, too, when we finished. And we didn't get a chance, that guy, to update our Lucas Oil winners from Reading.
First-time winner in comp, Steve Zupka took out his best buddy, Frank Aragon, in the final. Joey Cambry won his first race ever. Bo Butner in stock for the first time. Anthony Bertazzi wins again in Superstock. Tom Stalvin, Super Gas, a Jersey boy. And Jim Schreiner, his second win ever in Super Street. A lot of guys I watch race all the time back in the East Coast.
You know, tears come to my eyes as I look at the sunset here in Las Vegas. That's because I know next week the NHRA Full Throttle Series comes to a close with the Automobile Club of Southern California Finals qualifying Saturday night at 10:30 Eastern. NHRA race day kicks us off Sunday morning at 10 a.m. The finals coming your way at 9 Eastern. All of the Full Throttle Championships will be decided on the final day of drag racing, Lewis.
The big story, of course, funny car, Matt Hagan, John Force. Of course, last year, John Force's crew chief won his only race ever, Mike Neff at the finals.
Well, with that, it's time to head back to the car. We're going to the Las Vegas Strip to have a little bit more fun before we have to leave town. But next Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern, you can check out the last Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series event of the year, the Auto Club of Southern California Finals from Pomona, California. For Bob Price, Dad Guy, our entire ESPN2 crew, congratulations, Mickey Farrow. And congratulations, Jim Whiteley, the big winners today in Sin City.